Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, who do we have the honor of having on the show
We
today?
graduated David Jacoby because Angela Rye is joining the show today. And she represents the pulse of the culture with her intellect and the way she dissects everything that's happening in the world of pop culture and entertainment. And I love that hoodie. Welcome to the program. We've been trying to get the Harriet Tubman 20s put in circulation forever. What do you think happened to them?
Well, Donald Trump happened to him, and so did his administration under the leadership of the Secretary of the Treasury. That is Steve Mnuchin. They decided to delay this. And so my friend Mina Harris, who also runs the Phenomenal campaign, came up with Harriet Tubman being on our t-shirts, and maybe some of us should just get the stamp and stab her face all over Andrew Jackson.
Well, that is awesome. This weekend, we lost an all-time icon, a great in Mr. John Lewis, who did so much for the civil rights movement. Can you talk about his impact in his life and legacy?
Well, I first want to just say I'm just so thankful for Mr. Lewis and who he represented to me personally. I was the Congressional Black Caucus Executive Director and General Counsel, and had the great privilege of not only working with Mr. Lewis and his team. He has a phenomenal team who I know he's looking down from heaven and is so proud of. But he isn't just a civil rights hero to so many of us who walked across a bridge and risked his life for us to vote. He is also was also an amazing human being. Every single week, the Congressional Black Caucus holds a lunch. And Mr. Lewis, and it's a lunch meeting, and Mr. Lewis would come to those meetings late so that he could just eat lunch with the staff. And I will dearly miss him. Another one of my favorite memories of him. And I just think it's important to bring the humanity back to the hero. So I'll also tell you this, we held a jobs fair initiative while I was the Congressional Black Caucus ED with the phenomenal team, Latrice, Brandon, and Stephanie, under the chairmanship of Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver. We went to 5 cities. One of those cities was Atlanta. And the response was so large, you guys, because Black folks were not working. I mean, double the national unemployment always, but these numbers were remarkably high. And we went to Atlanta, held this job fair, lines literally wrapped around the block. People's cars were backed up on the highway. And Mr. Lewis was like, they need water. It's hot outside. He grabs this case of water and he's going out to hand water out to these folks. And that's him. He was always serving, whether it was public service, doing a sit-in on the House floor, or was ensuring people who were in the hot sun just waiting in line for a job could get a drink of water. That was Mr. Lewis. So he's dearly missed, and I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to work with him.
Angela, we are on the verge of the beginning of the NBA season. The teams are down in Orlando in the bubble, and there's been a lot of discussion about how players from the bubble can use that platform to continue the fight against social injustice. What advice would you have for them?
Well, first, I just want to shout out my very good friend, Chris Paul, who, of course, is the Players Association president, who is not forgetting the important role they have, not only with bully pulpits, what they say and press, what they're wearing on their attire. I know they have a partnership that they've just announced with Russell Westbrook, where they're intending to ensure there's, all types of social justice messaging and framing on their clothing items. I know that Black Lives Matter will be on the court. And so we're not going to lose sight of what's important to us. And I know the players won't. When you look at the demographics of the league, right? This is something that they can't separate themselves from. There are players who have been stopped and harassed and have had violent incidents with police officers. This is not lost upon them. And so I want to just applaud them for the work they're doing while they're going forth and playing. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but if they are going to play, I at least want them to do it that way. So I commend them for that. And I hope that they won't just put Black Lives Matter on the court. They will ensure that our lives matter, our economics matter, and that the demographics of the league's leadership matters, and that the players continue to hold the league's feet to the fire around that. All of those things are important. Don't just do this for a marketing moment for what's trending. Make sure that your practices change as well. And I have every bit of confidence that the players will do the right thing.
I'm actually glad you went there, because you talked about basically leaning towards them not playing I was one person that made the argument that now NBA players are so very powerful that if they decided not to play, they would create more of a platform than actually playing. Do you feel like them playing and in some of their voices becomes a distraction to the movement of social justice, because now we're going to be talking about their statistics and now about their equality?
Well, Jalen, this is honestly, it has been a hot topic. And what I will tell you is I really do see both sides now. Just for example, the news and what's being covered on cable news, nightly, local news, a lot of that coverage has shifted already, right? So at first I was like, you're going to take attention away from what's being covered on the news. The reality of it is there's a new COVID spike. So our social justice issues and our survival hasn't been front and center anyway, unfortunately, over the last week or so. What I think is imperative is that they find a way, just like we have to in our work, right? To integrate key talking points to ensure that they're pushing for societal change, both internally and externally. At some point, we have to make that change and that switch. At some point, we have to evolve into a more robust conversation, not just about police reform, but what it's going to take for Black people to really thrive in this country. So it's going to happen anyway. I was definitely on your side, like, no, don't go play. But now I think the reality of it is at some point that's going to change. And who knows, like, given what's happening with COVID, they may find themselves in a situation where they can't anyway. So the question will become, how do we keep our issues front and center in the face of another pandemic, which is COVID, also hitting us just as hard, actually harder?
It's a good point. Now, we turn our attention to the WNBA, which is also in Florida, about to start their season. And Atlanta Dream team owner and Senator Kelly Loeffler spoke out against the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, if you were a player on that team, called your phone, what advice would you give them about how they should proceed with their season?
First, I would continue to demand that she sells her shares to that team. She does not deserve to be an owner in the WNBA. She does not deserve to have a seat at the table where more than 68% of the players are Black. How dare she blaspheme this movement? How dare she use her platform, both as a senator and as someone in leadership in the WNBA as an owner, to speak ill of the Black Lives Matter movement? We are out here trying to survive, right? And for my friends, Opal, Patrice, and Alicia, who have risked their lives with this movement by creating it, who are threatened every single day, how dare she? That's what I would say. And I would continue to tell the women, not just on that team, but the players on other teams, to push for her to be removed. She actually does not represent the values of the WNBA. She is ill-informed about Black Lives Matter, and I require that people in leadership have more information than the layperson, right? She should know what she's talking about before she opens her mouth. And perhaps if she focused on her own personal ethics, she was just under ethics investigation in the Senate for potentially an insider trading deal. They dropped those charges, but maybe if she paid more attention to her own business, she wouldn't be in ours meddling and blaspheming what this movement is really about.
As I mentioned at the top of this show, as I mentioned when you first joined us, your Harriet Tubman hoodie is fly. There was a gentleman yesterday speaking into a microphone that gave new definition to the sunken place. And he had the nerve to even invoke her name, which is blasphemous. What is going on with Kanye West?
Child, I don't know. Like, the truth is, I really don't know. It's traumatizing. It really is really sad to see, Jalen. Kanye has traditionally been one of my favorite MCs. And I like, his song will come on and I'll just turn it now. I just can't. And I think that my biggest frustration is I don't know if he knows how harmful he's being to the culture right now. I don't even know if he's making that connection. And so part of me, like the heart part of me, feels like broken for him. Like, what happened to you and how can we get this right? The other part of me feels like, how can we ensure that we use what's happening with Kanye West to inform people, especially in our community, who avoid mental health and talking about it like the plague? how can we use this to say, if you're not well and you go out and try to lead other people, you're going to put other people in harm's way. And I think that he has to understand that with the price of greatness comes responsibility. And if you're not well, sit down. Really, like you have to sit down somewhere and get a hold of whatever's going on in your mind. I think that, people can support whomever they want politically. I never understood why he was supporting Trump, but I was worried then, and I think that the truth of the matter is there's some things that are, going on inside of him, an inherent conflict, an internal conflict that he really needs to wrestle with a mental health professional. And I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm concerned greatly about his mental health.
Angela, thank you so much for joining and giving your perspective. When we come back,